Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Subcontinent, a weekly show that aims to address the most significant issues in the South Asian region. And in today's episode, we'll be discussing two major issues: the ever-growing problem that Pakistan has been grappling for 70 years, and also the growing ties between two rising economies. So stay tuned.
In this special episode of the Subcontinent, we will discuss foreign aid and a bane for Pakistan. And we shall also take a look at growing ties between Iran and India.
Pakistan has been seeking external financial help for a long time. Since almost 70 years, the country has been receiving loans from the world organizations like the IMF and the World Bank. Presently, Pakistan's debt stock is over $125 billion. This huge amount has brought the South Asian Muslim country to the brink of default. The faulty economic policies that Pakistan has been implementing to secure loans have increased the economic burden on the people by turning Pakistan into a dependent economy.
The Western countries, especially the US, have been using the carrot and stick diplomacy to aggressively advance their geopolitical interests. America's war on terror provides a classical example where the US used the grant given to Pakistan to fulfill its own vested interests in the region, in turn damaging the country. The US, being one of the largest contributors of international financial institutions like the World Bank and the IMF, enables it to exert immense influence over the lending policies of these organizations. Western countries have been giving grants to Pakistan to fulfill their own gains, never taking into consideration the interests of the country or its people. The policies and adjustments that Islamabad has been making over the years to be granted loans by the IMF or the World Bank has only helped to fulfill the individual interests of the elite of the country. According to economic analysts, Islamabad needs to understand that the manipulative external financial help reduces entrepreneurship opportunities, makes the country dependent on imports, discourages the economic growth, thus preventing Pakistan to become self-sufficient.
Countries like the US have been using manipulative financial traps to influence developing countries like Pakistan in order to fulfill their personal interests. Being a victim of debt diplomacy, presently, Pakistan is struggling to keep its economy afloat. Islamabad has been going to the IMF for years to support its balance of payment difficulties. Instead of boosting it, the foreign aid has deteriorated the country's economy. The policies of the IMF, which have been designed for Western economies, have had counter effect on Pakistan, which is struggling with huge financial crises.
US is the primary financial contributor to the organizations like the IMF and the World Bank, thus influencing its major policy decisions. The neoliberal economic model suggested by the IMF for the developing countries, which have a different economic infrastructure as compared to the Western countries, is damaging these states. These faulty neoliberal policies of the IMF are leading the countries like Pakistan towards a disaster. Tight monetary policy, tight fiscal policy, market-based exchange rate, and increase in utility prices are damaging the already fragile economy of Pakistan. Increased interest rates increase the lending from the banks, which in turn increases the capital costs, discouraging investments, slowing down economic growth, creating unemployment, therefore dragging the country towards poverty. Slow economic growth decreases the tax collection, and tight monetary policies lead to increase in interest rates, thus increasing inflation. According to the IMF reviews of Pakistan's economy, the organization has called for exchange rates to be market-based. Research has shown that market-based exchange rates have caused devaluation of the currency, increasing public debt without borrowing a single dollar. Instead of getting stabilized through the neoliberal economic measures suggested by the IMF, Pakistan's economy has not only gotten worse, but also deindustrialized.
Now, to have more insight on this, we are joined by political analyst, broadcast journalist, producer and TV radio presenter, Mr. Munib Hamid from Islamabad. First of all, welcome to the program, sir. Now, Mr. Hamid, providing financial help to a country is not an act of philanthropy. It's done to meet the lending country's own interests.
An individual, so I'm sure they try to make sure to push their conditions, to push their policies, to push their interests the first hand on those countries. And this is what we have been seeing, what is happening with Pakistan in the past and even in the present right now, because Pakistan looks for loans from the US and other institutions for its survival economically, because we're weak, and this is how they dictate us on their terms, and they want us to implement their policies, to follow their policies. So of course this is another way of trapping Pakistan and other major economies around the world to follow stick.
So, Mr. Hamid, the US has been using the carrot and stick policy while lending aid to Pakistan. The war on terror is an example. Apart from weakening the country economically, what impact has it had on the national and international policies of Pakistan?
Negative impacts, completely negative impacts. We've seen Pakistan had nothing to do with the war on terror, but somehow Pakistan was engaged. Pakistan was dragged in this war on terror by the US, and we saw Pakistan, see its devastating results, which we are still going through a lot of terrorism in Pakistan and across the borders. And this is one thing that has happened with Pakistan, and in which Pakistan was dragged. Pakistan had nothing to do with it, but eventually Pakistan was dragged in this war on terror, and Pakistan was weakened economically. Pakistan was provided funds, Pakistan was provided aids, and in the same way as I answered before, this is all done just to make Pakistan weak economically, so that Pakistan can ask for loans, and then in return, when Pakistan asks for loan, when Pakistan seeks loans, so the US can implement its policies, the US can push on its demands, the US can continuously ask for do more, and do more. So of course it's had negative impacts throughout so far. Even still, we're facing the negative impacts.
Mr. Hamid, as you were talking about loans, the IMF and the World Bank have put conditions of adopting the neoliberal economic policies for availing the loans. So are these policies feasible for a South Asian country like Pakistan, which is struggling financially?
Absolutely not. These policies are not practically possible for a country like Pakistan. But for any, I don't see these policies reaping good fruit for any country in the world, because these policies only promote, are tailor-made to support the elite. And what about the poor people of Pakistan and the people around the world? So these policies are not supportive of the masses, but only accountable segment of the society, the elite, the industrialists, people who are running big businesses, corporations. These policies are only going to support them. So this is the result. We see the rich getting richer and the poor getting poorer, and so poorer that they eventually end up, in the graves. So these policies are not active, and these policies are designed to create, to disband, to divide the society, and it has negative implications all out. So these policies are not practically suitable for Pakistan, for any other economy.
Mr. Hamid, you've mentioned this in the second question, that this debt trap diplomacy has been used by the West in a way to make it difficult for the borrowing country to escape. So do you see Pakistan coming out of this debt cycle in the near future?
Well, honestly speaking, I don't see Pakistan coming out of this, economic death trap that we have been dragged into. There are plenty of reasons, just by controlling the dollar, the US can manipulate and destroy economies around the world. And of course, when Pakistan is a debt economy, Pakistan's economy is based upon loans. So if we do not receive loans, it's going to be pretty hard. It's going to be pretty impossible for us to run our government affairs and run the system without those funds. So of course we are in a trap, and I don't really have hope from my politicians or this existing current system that it is in any way is going to economically become independent. And unless our governments or our system or the stakeholders in Pakistan don't think of creating a system sustainable for self-growth, for self-industrialization in all the sectors, I don't see Pakistan coming out of this death trap. For Pakistan to come out of this death trap, it is not very difficult. Pakistan has, alhamdulillah, Pakistan has all the resources in the world right now in Pakistan. But the people of Pakistan need someone to trust on. Pakistan needs a new system, and without that, I don't see us coming out of this death trap. Is it possible for Pakistan to come out of this death trap? Yes, but for that, Pakistan needs to make immediate emergency, measures and maybe reforms. Pakistan needs a lot of stuff to do, and in that way, Pakistan can come out. But I don't see that happening any soon.
On that note, I would like to thank political analyst, broadcast journalist, producer and TV radio presenter, Mr. Muneeb Hamid from Islamabad. Thank you for being on the program, sir. Now let's see what people had to say on social media.
Andy, a netizen, tweeted, "Don't forget that foreign aid is a cover for enriching political allies and not what it's presented as. That is gender studies in Pakistan." Muhammad Farooq Qadri, a social media influencer from Punjab, Pakistan, tweeted, "Pakistan needs to develop its own indigenous economy and technology rather than relying on foreign aid and investment. Pakistan has a strategic location and can play a key role in the geopolitical and economic affairs of the region." Sonia Khalid, a netizen from Pakistan, tweeted, "They are proven hypocrites on foreign aid and agenda. Pakistanis don't need them. We are here for each other and Allah is sufficient for us."
As the world is witnessing a shift in geopolitical dynamics, India and Iran have embarked on a journey to strengthen their economic collaboration. Despite fluctuations in bilateral trade over the past decade, the two countries are now determined to deepen their economic integration and foster stronger ties. With the operationalization of the international North-South transport corridor, the exploration of energy cooperation and the revitalization of key infrastructure projects such as the Chabahar port, new opportunities are unfolding between Iran and India.
Tehran, in line with its Look East roadmap, is increasingly prioritizing the enhancement of ties with India. India's membership in the BRICS bloc and the Shanghai Cooperation Organization holds great significance for Iran. These multilateral organizations provide a platform for trade, investment, and security cooperation, aligning with Tehran's broader vision of advancing a multipolar world. India and Iran view each other as partners with shared interests in transit, energy, and commerce. Tehran and New Delhi are actively engaged in the development of the international North-South transport corridor, an extensive network encompassing sea, rail, and road routes. Spanning over 7,200 kilometers, this corridor connects Mumbai in India to northern Europe, passing through Iran, Azerbaijan, and Russia. At the heart of this strategic initiative lies the Chabahar port in southern Iran. The port assumes a pivotal role in aligning India's interests with Iran. Serving as a gateway to Central Asia and potentially Europe, the strategic port provides India with access to markets in Russia, Central Asia, and beyond. India had invested $85 million in the port's infrastructure, and despite the hurdles posed by the U.S. sanctions, the progress on the project continues.
As the dynamics of the global order continues to evolve, the strengthening trade relations between India and Iran mark a significant milestone. While both countries have experienced hiccups in their bilateral trade in the past few years, a new era of cooperation is dawning with non-oil trade and the rupee-rial payment mechanism taking a center stage. With India and Iran forging ahead with their efforts to deepen economic collaboration, the diversity in trade between the two countries is opening a new avenue of partnership.
According to statistics, Iran's total non-oil exports in the months of April and May amounted to an impressive 21 million tons, valued at $7.513 billion. Imports during the same period reached 4.732 million tons, worth $7.941 billion. Notably, India has emerged as one of Iran's top 5 export markets, marking a significant milestone in their economic relations. In their pursuit of enhanced economic collaboration, India and Iran have also been actively working on establishing a robust rupee-rial payment mechanism, hence reducing the reliance on traditional international currencies, mainly the dollar. While rice and tea remain India's main exports to Iran, New Delhi imports an array of goods, including nuts, ammonia, apples, pears, pistachios, dates, and almonds, among others. Additionally, India has also been importing products such as methanol, toluene, crude oil, liquefied butane, propane, and mineral-based oil from Iran. Beyond trade, both the countries have demonstrated their commitment towards strengthening the bilateral ties through recent high-profile visits and talks. Indian National Security Advisor Ajit Doval's recent meeting with President Ebrahim Raisi and many high-ranking officials indicate the determination to elevate their relations to a new level. The shared vision of a multipolar world order, as embraced by Tehran, aligns with New Delhi's strategic interests, providing further impetus to the relations between the two countries.
Now, to have more insight on this, we are joined by Associate Fellow and the West Asia Center political analyst, Dr. Deepening-Saraswat from New Delhi. First of all, welcome to the program, Miss. Now, let's begin with one of the most important obstacles. Given the U.S. sanctions on Iran, how can India navigate the economic challenges and also ensure the progress of projects like the Chabahar port, which has already faced a long delay?
In my opinion, the story of Chabahar port has to be seen as a story of resilience. And I say so because since the signing of Chabahar agreement in 2016, there have been several changes. First, we saw return of sanctions on Iran, which made procurement of very necessary equipment tremendously difficult. I mean, in 2020, it was for the first time that when India Ports Global, after got the responsibility for operating the port, the sourcing of the equipment became tremendously difficult. I mean, the tender had to be floated several times before the equipment, the mobile harbor cranes, were sourced in 2021, and these challenges continue to persist. I mean, so sanctions on Iran is one, and then the changes in Afghanistan. Afghanistan was very much part of the trilateral agreement, and now with Taliban Taliban in power, and I think that also adds another dimension of challenge to Chabahar port. But still, India has been using the port to supply humanitarian assistance to the people of Afghanistan. So I would say that it's important that we look at this port, which is being jointly developed by India and Iran, in a more realistic way, and see and appreciate the concerted efforts that the two sides have made. I mean, in the last 1 year, India has made very concerted efforts in engaging Central Asian countries to use the Chabahar port. So I would say it's important to see Chabahar port as a story of resilience.
Dr. Saraswat, in the context of India's membership in the BRICS and also the SCO, to what extent can these multilateral organizations serve as catalysts for further strengthening the economic ties between India and Iran?
India has been, for over a decade, I think, has been advocating for reforming international institutions, the financial, the banking, this Western-led international institutions, and most importantly, the UN. I mean, India has been one of the key votaries of reforming, UN Security Council and staking a membership claim. So India, therefore, has been a very important player in BRICS and as well as SCO. It became a permanent member nearly 6 years ago. So which means these institutions, BRICS and SCO, as non-Western multilateral institutions, India has been a very a strong voice there. So now after many decades that Iran was also pushing for membership in these institutions, and now we see that it's happening. So I do assess that these the expansion of membership in these institutions does reflect the wider geopolitical changes that have happened, and the increasing importance of non-Western actors, and how that can make a more democratic sort of international order. And that means that the countries are increasingly capable of having independent approach to issues. So I think overall it will be beneficial for relations between independent countries like Iran and India.
Dr. Saraswat, we've mentioned the Chabahar port. Let's talk about the international north-south transit corridor. What are the key infrastructural and logistical challenges that need to be addressed to ensure the seamless operation of the INSTC? And also, how can both countries collaborate to overcome these hurdles?
Corridors like INSTC, they are led by the governments of these major three countries, Russia, Iran, and India, which means to say that these states see developing of this transcontinental corridor of this scale as key to further more economic ties, more commercial ties involving private players, and which is important for the success of a corridor like this. So there are two things that I think have to be done, and I see there is more energy from all sides on those two fronts. First is to work on the physical infrastructure connectivity, and in this direction, the efforts that Russia and Iran especially have made for constructing the Astara railway line, which has been a missing link for a very long time. That's very important, and the more what should I say? I mean, the work that Russia and Iran have done on the north-south railway corridor via Kazakhstan, Turkmenistan to Iran, and then that's another eastern part of the INSTC. That's very encouraging. But even bigger part is to make the private companies, the freight forwarders, the small, especially the small and medium industries, to use these facilities to reach new markets. So I think with the changes that have been happening following the war in Ukraine and the sanctions on Russia, and the cooperation that is there with Iran and Russia and also India, I think this corridor has a bright future going ahead.
And last but not least, Dr. Saraswat, we've seen the world is advancing towards a multipolar world order. So the question is, what geopolitical implications can it have on the ties between these two countries, Iran and India?
So let me start by saying that both India and Iran see themselves as independent strategic actors. And in this, at this juncture where we see an emergence of multipolar order, which means that it's not just one particular country, which is dominating, but we see multiple countries. They have their own approach to international issues. They are playing increasing role regionally and internationally. So we see that Iran is going forward with its Look East policy and focus on Asia. The President Raisi of Iran has been visiting. He's visited China this year. Earlier he went to Russia. And so we see that Iran sees the potential in Asian continent, And similarly for India, while it has concepts like Indo-Pacific, but that does not mean that we are not involved on the continental Asia. We are a partner, we are a member in SCO, we are involved with Russia in the INSTC, with Iran in Chabahar. So I see that as the two countries focus more on the Asian continent, it does create more opportunities for not only strengthening bilateral ties, but having more multilateral and more regional kind of engagement.
There you have it, Associate Fellow and the West Asia Center political analyst, Dr. Deepika Saraswat from New Delhi. Thank you for being on the program, Miss. Now let's see how people have reacted on social media.
Admir, a netizen involved with music, arts and politics, tweeted, America is not a superpower anymore. China, Russia, Iran, Saudi Arabia, India, Turkey are creating a multipolar world. Shodager, a writer and researcher from India, tweeted, India is the current chair of the SCO and Iran is set to be made a permanent member of the grouping at its annual summit later this year. The implementation of the Chabahar port project in Iran is also a key focus area in the bilateral ties between New Delhi and Tehran. Akash Tiwari, an Indian interested in marketing and advertising, tweeted, Iran and Russia overall are having good relations with India, while US is not liking the same. They will now do anything for their own good and benefits. High time for us to note these things closely.
And that was our episode on foreign aid, a bane for Pakistan and growing ties between Iran and India. Now to watch the previous episodes and more updates, you can follow us on social media. When you do, don't forget to give us your feedback. We shall meet again, same time, same day next week. So till then, take great care.